Hi viewers, another episode of Guest with Nazir. Today we are discussing a personality which has a lot of hats, a magistrate, lecturer, researcher and many interesting things. But we will talk about her life and today we are honored. We have Yasmin Farooq in our show. Welcome in our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Please tell our viewers about your life and early days.
Okay, I migrated from Azad Kashmir back in 1977, and the purpose of my migration was because my father came to work here in the steel industry. As you know, in the early 60s there was labor shortage, so he came, and then eventually we also joined him. So that was the reason why I came with my family.
At what age you been moved here, or are you born here?
No, I was born and brought up, in fact, studying for medicine back in Pakistan. But because my father came here, so he said that it would be difficult for me to be on my own because my medical college was about 1,000 miles away from where I lived. So I decided to join. I was about 19 when I came.
So after FSC, you moved here?
Yes, yeah.
And after moving here, what difficulties and challenges you have faced? Because if we talk about that age and that stage, first thing is the linguistic barrier, and the second is the cultural barrier. So you have faced all these challenges?
Precisely. I think uprootedness, I think, is the word that describes my experiences. Because obviously I could speak English, but I spoke Shakespeare's English, or Queen's English, you can say. And I think understanding Yorkshire dialect, it was pretty tough. Even now, I think I struggle sometimes. So yes, there was some language barrier, and I did go to a college initially to learn English. And then I did my A-levels because I still wanted to go into medicine, because that was my father's dream. But I think competition here was pretty tough. So eventually I went into social work and did a degree in social work. So from there on, I think, long journey.
And soon after completing your education, so which department you joined? And
yeah, I joined Sheffield Social Services, and I think it would be fair to say that I was the first Asian worker within the city council as a social worker, because awareness, I think, was very limited among our own community in terms of what social work is and what social workers do. So yes, I was the very first Asian.
So when we talk about social work or social worker, a lot of things comes in my mind or our viewers' mind. So how you defined the role of social worker in this society?
I think the role of social worker has changed quite a lot over the years. I think at the time when I joined, it was very much about empowering service users to become independent and enable them to have self-determination, etc. And the values and the role has changed very much. These days, it's more about case management and accessing packages of services for your service users. There is no time for therapeutic work that we did back in the 70s.
And when you decided to move from Sheffield City Councils to university, so which university you joined then?
I went into teaching social work eventually. It was Sheffield University, and I enjoyed very much because I had years of experience, not only as a social work practitioner and a manager, but I also brought with me what it was like to be an Asian woman living in the UK. So I wanted to feed that back into social work. So it was really, really interesting experience.
Do you still teach? Or?
I teach, but in very different disciplines now. It's more sociology and social statistics.
How you find the time management? Because if we look at your profile, you have a very busy woman. You are a magistrate in one hat. You are a researcher and a parent or a teacher, so many duties. So, and socially, I know you are very busy also. You have done some charity work also. So how you find the time management?
I I have always been very organized and very disciplined, and I think I learned that from my father. So I use my diary very effectively. And these days you have iPhones and these gadgets that help you. So I think, my family were very, very supportive. My own parents did a lot of childcare for me in the years that I had young family and I needed to work as well. So I'm very grateful to my mother and my father who helped me quite a lot to be where I am today.
And in terms of your own time, everybody has some hobbies, some sports. Do you have any kind of hobby, gardening or any sport do you do?
Sports, not really. I'm not a very supportive person. My hobbies, I'm considered as a bookworm, I think, by many people. I love watching documentaries, and also I love visiting friends and family, and entertaining as well.
And do you visit Pakistan quite often, or?
I have recently been, actually. I went to Muzaffarabad University to present a paper initially, and then I stayed with the family and friends there. I was there for a month, and I wouldn't say very regularly, because when you have a young family and you have a job as well, it's very difficult to visit very regularly. But I have gone sort of every 5-6 years. So
in two societies, in Pakistan and United Kingdom, if you have to reform both societies, what two things to both societies you will recommend as a social worker?
You mean in terms of integration in the UK?
Integration, and also the empowering the women and improvement the life of the poor people. So
I think, first of all, I think for my my own experiences, I think I felt that I needed to learn language. Language was very, very important. And I think education, which is also part of education. And I do believe that I think employment brings a lot of empowerment as well. But sometimes there aren't enough opportunities for everybody. However, I think if you have got education, you are more likely to find an employment rather than if you don't speak the language and if you don't have any qualification.
In your doctorate, what was the subject of your thesis and your research?
The topic of my thesis was integration experiences of overseas trained South Asian doctors. And it was a project that I inherited at the University of Manchester. There was some communication between two schools, School of Medicine and School of Social Statistics in Manchester. And both had collaboratively worked on this project, which was about finding out the integration experiences of highly skilled migrants, which are South Asian doctors. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So I was very fortunate to actually be able to work on this project.
Last week, you'll surprise, I was in a dinner arranged by the Association of Pakistani Physicians and Doctors. And I was surprised that only Pakistani origin doctors, there are 8,000 to 9,000 in this country who are serving NHS. And it was a surprise for me.
Oh, really? Did you think there was a lower number or a higher number? Or?
I think it's a good number, and because when we talk about the NHS and its difficulties, and I think from our Asian background and when we talk about the people who are qualified in that country, so they have come all over here and they have served this country and the nation. I think it's a great achievement.
Like you said, I wasn't aware of the level, the extent of the contribution until I started my research project, and I learned that actually back in the early 1970s, 40% of the hospital doctors came from Indian subcontinent, and 1 in 5 GP was also trained in South Asia. Even now, even today's statistics, after the UK trained doctors, India is the second largest country and Pakistan is number 3. So what my research highlights is that the doctors who came from the Indian subcontinent, which is India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and also Sri Lanka, they not only they made a huge contribution in terms of when the NHS was being developed, but also they keep it going even now.
But it's quite interesting that some doctors who are born here, qualified here, they're moving to other countries like Canada, Australia.
I think these are contemporary debates that you will be aware that I think there are huge issues in the NHS in terms of how it should be managed, and obviously doctors are more likely to go to countries where they have a lifestyle that they hoped for, and this is in fact one main reason why there was a medical labor shortage in the UK, because most of the UK trained doctors migrated to more affluent countries, for example New Zealand, Australia, Canada. So this created a shortage in this country, and then the South Asian trained doctors started moving into the
This
UK.
government is very tough on immigration, especially whenever we see they change the immigration law, policies, rules, regulations. So what is your message to this government that what they should opt, the policy especially about the people who are qualified, and I will say the qualified and educated migration?
I think to begin with, I believe that there is a tendency to look at all migrants as one group. So what my research highlights is that actually migrants who come from low-skilled and unskilled background, they make a different type of contribution, and highly skilled migrants, such as my group that I studied, they make their own contribution in a specific way, in their own way. So and it is important that we are aware of the type of contribution that each group makes. What my research highlights is that actually these highly skilled South Asian doctors made a huge contribution. For example, they were located in places where there was a acute medical shortage. For example, I think most of the times you find my statistical analysis shows that they were located in either in high ethnic density areas, say for example Birmingham or wherever there is high ethnic density, or quite contrary actually to in areas where it is predominantly white areas, deprived areas, for example Barnsley. I mean, what we find in Barnsley is that the ethnic ratio is very, very low. In fact, the lowest in the whole of South Yorkshire. But what you find is that the GP workforce actually represented 30% from South Asian.
So the total numbers
within Barnsley. So so these doctors have made a huge contribution in rural areas, and what I also found was that oftentimes, as you said, that in the immigration debates, it is often said that these immigrants are coming and they're taking our jobs away and housing and stuff. But these, and also it is made out that it is at the expense of white people's needs not being met. But when you, if you study my thesis, what it highlights is that there was a very close bond between these white working class patients and the doctors from South Asia, and they contributed in a very positive way.
It's a very interesting subject. We'll move forward because of the time constraints. So we move towards your career, that how you move towards the magistrateship. So it's quite interesting being an Asian lady living in the United Kingdom and having this role, sitting on magistrateship. So how you enter into this? When
I was a social worker a long time ago, of course, I've been, I think, a magistrate for about more than 15 years now. As a social worker, my role required me to go to court quite often with my service users, and oftentimes I felt that you know, there was a bench of 3 white people, and I think if you are a defendant or if you are in court for some reason, you want to see on that bench, you want to see some representation of who you are, what your background is, in terms of reassurance, in terms of that there is going to be justice. I'm not implying that those 3 white people will not be implementing justice, but I think it's very important for people to see
you mean
that visible
representation from all community?
Yeah, I think it's very important for people to see visible representation. So it got me interested, and I applied. I think when it comes to Asian women participation, I find that for all sorts of reasons, I think the participation is very, very low.
You have seen justice system from a very high level, because recently government has cuts, especially in the legal aid and especially in the court system, and now they are changing the number of court system, and also there's a lot of changings coming, and recently they have also increased the court fee. So how you see that, how it will affect a litigant and also a common citizen in this country?
It's challenging, I would say, and I think there are issues which have been addressed within the Magistrates Association, and there are ongoing issues, and it's going to be challenging for everybody involved, really.
So, what is your message for the young students who are studying the social work or sociology or related subjects? How they can achieve a very good level of professionalism?
I think I go back to values of social work. How social work originated. As I say, originally it was empowerment of the service users and the carers, and I would say that I think people should always remember the historical background, how this profession came into being, rather than how much it's going to earn you and what kind of lifestyle you will have. So I think I would believe in terms of those ethos, self-determination, empowerment, and supporting people in times of dire need, really.
And when we talk about Sheffield, how you define Sheffield in a very short phrase, because you lived all your life here in this city. So how you define Sheffield?
Sheffield is a place that I love, and I always will love, because, as I say, this was a place where my father brought us here, although he's not alive anymore. But he made a huge contribution in his own way. He worked in steel firms, and I think Sheffield has so much to offer, for all sorts of people from all sorts of background. In terms of cultural resources, it's an affluent city, it's 4th largest city, and the diversity, how the diversity is managed within Sheffield. Luckily we've not had many civil disturbances, and I think we have done extremely well, and I love Sheffield.
And what is your message for Sheffield Live viewers?
Sheffield Live viewers is that I think they need to support this channel in terms of because it's a way of communication. So if this channel wasn't there, I wouldn't be able to talk to your viewers, and I think. It's like, you clap with both hands, we say in our language, so you need their support, and so we need to listen to, engage with what viewers want, etc.
Dr. Yasmin, thank you for joining. Because of the time restraints, we will stop here. Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation, and in coming days, we'll bring more personalities, and of course, if you think you have contributed for this society or anywhere in the world and you want to join me, please do contact us. My email is shown on our screen, and keep watching Sheffield Live TV. Thank you and goodbye.